Hello, hello. Hi everyone, nice to see such a big audience. Very grateful for that. Hello. Item number 1 is welcome and apologies. So I think I've done my welcome. Hello, everybody. And then apologies. We have apologies from Councillor Sir Steve Howson. And Councillor Mackinson is attending as, it says here reserve, but I don't like that phrase very much. Yeah, exactly. As star striker drafted in. Yes, there we go. Therefore, onto agenda item number 2, which is a bunch of announcements, which are, we've had quite a bit of exciting news in South Yorkshire over the last few days and weeks. For me personally, I started the new year by heading back to my old school, South Yorkshire's finest, Portercroft Primary, to talk about reading and why reading matters, which was wonderful. Really loved it. I spent time reading with a group of Year 1 pupils. Learned a lot, as you'd imagine, as a part of a visit launching the beginnings of our Every Child a Reader programme later this year, programme designed to help children and their families to have access to books and reading, which is really important to me and close to my heart. Those Year 6 pupils were in many ways a tougher crowd than the one I spoke to a few days later in Barnsley. At Barnsley Civic, I set out my plan for bringing power closer to people in South Yorkshire, across South Yorkshire, talked about my focus and our focus for 2026 and highlighted some of the key priorities and projects that we're all going to be driving forward over the next year. On NPR, Northern Powerhouse Rail, earlier this month, alongside people from about this table, I was pleased to join the Rail Minister, the Secretary of State for Transport, and also before that the Chancellor, fellow Northern Mayors, as we relaunched Northern Powerhouse Rail, and then to welcome the Secretary of State for Transport here at Sheffield Station last week for a formal signing of our compact, our agreement with government. I have spent, alongside our team, months negotiating with ministers, with the government and civil servants about what Northern Powerhouse Rail needs to mean for South Yorkshire, and the commitments they've made are, I think we would all agree, significant, and I was really pleased to see them. They include plans for 4 fast trains an hour from Sheffield to Leeds, that's up from 2 today, significantly running on electrified lines, more and better connections to Manchester, a clear commitment to support plans for Rotherham's new mainline station, here. Improvements to Sheffield Station, millions of pounds to help kickstart extensions to the Supertram network, which I know we've been very focused on, so it's really good to see that commitment get over the line, and also getting plans for a Dearne Valley Parkway station back on the table as NPR develops. So really positive developments, big commitments from the government. Like any major rail infrastructure project, that's going to take time to deliver. And I understand the cynicism from some people about delivery of big rail projects. Like everybody else across the north, I am naturally sceptical when it comes to big projects on rail, but this matters because I've worked with government to get it right and ensure it puts South Yorkshire back where it belongs, at the heart of the rail plan for the whole of the north. Worth remembering that under the last government we did absolutely face real challenges, not least being cut out of the Northern Powerhouse Rail scheme and losses of the HS2 on the eastern leg as well. So this is the start of a journey, not the end. There's still some work to do, obviously, on the rest of the White Rose Rail Plan, which will deliver for the rest of Yorkshire and indeed South Yorkshire, but it's a really positive moment and I'm determined to greet it as such, one that promises faster, more reliable connections between the great cities and communities of the north, so I welcome it, absolutely. On level 3 status / active travel, some more good news. Last month, South Yorkshire was recognised as one of the top places in the country for walking, wheeling and cycling, achieving level 3 in Active Travel England's latest ratings, which I know might sound to some people slightly technocratic and maybe arguably a little bit dull, but it is really important. It's a brilliant demonstration of what we can accomplish when we work together, showing strong leadership, growing capacity and a clear commitment to giving people genuine choice and freedom about how they travel and move across South Yorkshire. Active Travel England's rating celebrates, I think, how far we've come and recognise the power and value of our vision to make South Yorkshire healthier, happier and the very best place in the country to walk, wheel and cycle, particularly for children and young people. I just want to say thank you to the people around this table and obviously Steve as well for the work that's gone in to get that rating up to where it is today, because I know it's come at no small challenge and commitment from local authority partners, and my team, Nicola and Ed in particular, do always tell me how much our local authorities are leaning in to active travel, so I really appreciate the commitment to that, because I think we owe it to children and young people in particular, and that's where our focus will remain. On to agenda item number 3, urgent items. Unless anyone's going to surprise me, I don't think we have any urgent items. Item number 4, items to be considered in the absence of public and press. We don't have any of those this month. Item number 5, declarations of interest by individual members in relation to any item of business on the agenda. Other than the standing items, I don't believe we have any. Would anybody like to declare anything? No. Thank you. On to item number 6, reports from and questioned by members. We haven't had any submitted. Item number 7, receipt of petitions. We've had none submitted, which takes us on to public questions, and I'm pleased to see such a significant number of people here today. I genuinely am. Thank you for coming. We've received several questions from members of the public, and the first is from Martin Mayer on behalf of Better Buses, and I believe he is here in attendance. Would you like to come up, Martin, and make sure you press the button on the... Yeah. Nice to see you.
Much, Oliver and the board. My name's Martin Mayer. This is my colleague Jenny Carpenter. We're from the Better Buses campaign, and as you know, Oliver, we completely support the franchising process which is underway, but we also want to be assured that the contracts for the operators are tight and robust. We've had the experience of deregulation of bus companies not exactly giving us the service we require, and there is, of course, a history of public authorities not holding private contractors as strictly to account as we would like. So I'll read out my question, Oliver. Regarding contract specifications for bus operators awarded franchises, will operators be required to operate 95%, 97% or 99% of their contract services, and will there be accurate monitoring of the bus operators' performance in this regard? An important point is sanctions. So what sanctions will be used against operators who fail to meet their targets, including as a last resort the withdrawal of the contract? The next paragraph deals with labour conditions and the use of the mayoral authority's assets. Will there be labour and conditions requirements on operators to ensure that employees' terms and conditions are at least harmonised upwards, or ideally raised above that, to ensure labour stability and a motivated workforce? And I'll just add to that, we don't want to see the operators using economies on labour costs in order to extract more profit. So it's quite an important part of the question. And what will be the requirements for engineering and maintenance of SYMCA's vehicles and depots? They're being entrusted with public assets. We have to make sure that the operators use them properly and don't abuse them. And that's the questions. Thank you.
Thank you. So before I answer, we're saying a couple of things. One, the answer that I'm about to give you is quite a technical answer in response to what are quite technical questions, but as ever, and this goes for all the questions that are being asked today, I'm always happy to spend a bit of time after the meeting if you'd like to stay and have a more informal conversation about any of this. I'm of course happy to do that. Secondly, just say thank you, because I know you both have been big advocates for bus reform for a long time, and we're finally getting somewhere, so I appreciate entirely where your question is coming from. And that leads me on to the third thing, which is just say, whilst I won't, I think, give you all the detail you want right now, because we're still working through some of the process, it's worth saying I agree with the thrust, I think, of your questions, and where I think you're trying to get us to. So that is, I hope you take that in the spirit it is meant. So the response, more specifically, is in answer to your first question, the performance regime for franchise bus services is currently in development, so we're not quite there yet. The level of service that must be provided before penalties are applied has not yet been determined. The intention is for the proposed performance regime, including minimum service levels, to be set out in the first half of 2026 after further engagement. So bear with us is basically the thrust of that answer. In answer to 2, yes, accurate monitoring of operator performance will of course be in place as part of franchising, so we will of course look at that performance. In answer to 3, the performance regime for franchise bus services is currently in development, so a similar answer. The proposed sanctions that might apply to operators who fail to meet their contractual commitments haven't yet been finalised. The intention is for proposed sanctions regimes to be set out in the first half of 2026 after further engagement. Number 4, SYMCA officers meet regularly with a trade union you may know well, Unite, the main employee representative in the South Yorkshire bus sector, of course, on a wide range of issues relating to bus franchising. 2P legislation will apply in the event that bus company employees transfer between operators. 2P protects employees, as you know, when their business or service is transferred to a new employer, ensuring their jobs, terms and conditions transfer automatically, maintaining employment continuity. But I think you would expect me to say, and I will say, we want the highest standard of rights for the people we work with. And then on number 5, bus operators will be required to ensure the maintenance of any vehicles, equipment and premises owned by SYMCA as part of leasing arrangements and the franchise contract. So they are the technical answers. I'm always happy to talk to you both and the Better Buses campaign, of course, about a more informal and lengthy response to those questions, if that's okay.
Yeah, thank you. We'd appreciate that. Thanks very much.
Thanks, guys. On to question number 2, please. The second question is from Tim Brown, who's present at the meeting. Tim, would you mind stepping up? Thank you. You don't have to if you don't want to. I can read it on your behalf, or you're more than welcome to.
I'll have a go.
Thank you.
I'm not used to attending such meetings
We're pleased to see
in
you.
front of so many powerful people, so please forgive me. So thank you, Mayor, and for providing me with an opportunity to ask a question, which is based on my experience of being born in Doncaster, being born in poverty, raising questions of racism for the past 25 years, only to be ignored and victimised. But nevertheless, I'm here today, and the question is, will you confirm that South Yorkshire Mayoral Combined Authority will not release further public funds to the City of Doncaster Council until it can demonstrate full compliance with its statutory duties under the Public Sector Equality Duty Equality Act? And can Mayor Coppard confirm publicly that funding to the City of Doncaster Council will be conditional on acknowledgement that Mayor Jones' colourblind approaches are incompatible with the public sector equality duty, that there's clear evidence of action to address systemic racism and racial disparities in the City of Doncaster, that there are effective safeguards to prevent the victimisations of people who look like me, who raise concerns, and that there are transparent accountability to rebuild trust with the black communities. This is not about rhetoric. It's about lawful governance, ethical leadership, and the responsible use of public money. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Tim. And as I said previously to others, I'm more than happy to have a conversation with you after the meeting briefly. Got a little bit of time if you'd like to stay in. Happy to talk some of these questions through, because this, as you can expect, I have a technical response to your question. So thank you for coming. Look, I've been really clear as we've worked to reopen the airport. Equality of opportunity is at the heart of what we're trying to achieve, particularly increasing opportunities for people right across Doncaster, South Yorkshire. And that's central to our approach, and I mean for everybody, as you would expect. So as part of the due diligence work for the airport, we did commission an equality impact assessment, as is right, and that was to properly understand the impacts and opportunities for all of our communities, and that was considered by the MCA board alongside the business case and our wider due diligence when we took our funding decision in September. I can also confirm that our funding agreement with the City of Doncaster Council will require the council to comply with all equalities legislation, as you would expect, and to take steps where required to prevent unlawful discrimination. I know you've reached out to Kulbinder Viger's our Deputy Mayor for Policing and Crime, but also our Equalities Commissioner, and she's planning to meet with you to listen to your concerns, and we welcome the opportunity to have that further conversation because it is an incredibly important one. So thank you very much for coming to the meeting.
Thank you.
I believe Mayor Ros Jones wanted also just to provide a brief response as well, given its concerns, Doncaster.
Thank you, Oliver, and thank you, Mr. Brown, for your question. I can confirm that the City of Doncaster Council has and will continue to comply with the equality legislation on all key decisions. As Mr. Brown will acknowledge, I provided a full response to a question he asked at full council last week, which included me highlighting that Doncaster Anti-Racism Partnership was shortlisted for National Award last September for the Excellence in Community Partnership Award at the National BAME Health and Care Awards 2025. Thank you.
Thank Thank you. Our next question, question number 3, has been submitted by Mr. Ashraf, who is also here. Would you mind just stepping up and asking the question? Thank you.
Assalamu alaikum. Good afternoon, Chair, members and officers. In detail with a breakdown of company name, amount, purpose and project title, what public funding including direct grants, investments, subsidies, loans, training, promotions, etc. is spent per year since 2021 via SYMCA on aerospace, defence, security companies in general and specifically supplying Israel, and also what meetings, interactions have there been between all those companies and SYMCA or its representatives of the same time period, while a live stream genocide, ethnic cleansing and occupation is currently happening in Gaza at a slower pace in the rest of Palestine. I'll accept an email and posted answer, and if further clarification is needed about my question, please do not hesitate to contact me. Thank you in advance to you and your officers and efforts in answering my question. And I would just like to mention that since Sheffield Council has reduced their funds in Barclays from £20 million to near zero, I would just invite SYMCA to do the same. Thank you.
Welcome, Salam. Thank you for your question. Thank you for being here. It's a really important question. As I've said to others, you'll get a technical response, but clearly I'm happy to have this conversation with you as well, because it is a big and important question that you ask, and it's a legitimate question that you ask, and I think it's worth saying that. I would hope there is no one in South Yorkshire who's watching what is happening in the Middle East, and I refer specifically to Israel and Palestine, but also the increasing worries that we have in places like Lebanon and Iran, without real concern and wanting an immediate end to the horrors that we are seeing. Right? I would hope there is no one in South Yorkshire who doesn't feel that way. I've said since October 7th that both Israel and Israelis and Palestine and the Palestinian people deserve nothing less than freedom, the opportunity to live in peace and in security. So, look, I just want to start by saying that the work being undertaken by companies including Boeing, Rolls-Royce in South Yorkshire is not focused on defence, and it's worth saying that as well. Rather, the work being done by Boeing, Rolls-Royce and others, and there are a number of them, is largely centred on creating commercial aircraft parts, green energy and innovation to create more sustainable technologies, and I think that's really important. It's important for South Yorkshire, it's important for the world, and we are right at the forefront of those technologies. You look particularly at what Boeing are doing in South Yorkshire. They came here because of our expertise in creating lighter aircraft, essentially, in order to make flying more sustainable. And I think we would all say that that is incredibly important, not least the work related to the work that we're doing at Doncaster Sheffield Airport. But I do acknowledge your views about the defence sector, of course, and there are companies in South Yorkshire working on defence projects and in the defence supply chain. Of course there are. The sad reality, though, from my perspective, is that the world, and I think we've seen this increasingly, certainly over the last few months, but also the last few weeks, is becoming more uncertain, a more hostile place. And whilst we can't and shouldn't ignore the conflict in the Middle East, and we should not, neither can we ignore the aggression we're seeing from people like Vladimir Putin towards Europe, North Korea, on Europe's borders, in Ukraine. And I know Sheffield in particular, but South Yorkshire more broadly, has been at home to any number of people from Ukraine who've been fleeing that terror. And I'm really proud of the role we played there as well. Those people who are defending themselves every single day, today included in Ukraine, also rely on those defence supply chains here in this country. And I do think it's legitimate for us to support their work and the defence interests of this country. I'm proud of the work that we do on security in this region and the role we are playing in keeping places like Ukraine free from the terror inflicted on them and, if he had the chance, us, by Vladimir Putin. It's my job, it's our job, to balance the competing interests in this region. And I think the approach we are taking is the right one. That's my job. I bear that responsibility, and I recognise the different competing interests in this region and what people care about in this region, rightly, legitimately, and I care about those things too. But at the same time, we have to take this region forward. We have to protect this country. We have to make sure people here have good jobs in the industries of the future. And South Yorkshire is at the forefront of a number of technologies related to sustainable aviation, advanced manufacturing, and yes, security, and those things are related. So we, of course, undertake due diligence on all of our investments and keep all our work under constant review, and we'll continue to do that with everyone we offer to support, every company we want to come and invest in South Yorkshire, everybody we are speaking to. But I do believe we have struck the right balance here in this region in order to take the region forward, protect our country, protect our allies, and work in the interests of security. But thank you very much for your question. Question number 4, please. I believe that we have a question from June Cattell, who's also present at the meeting. June, is that you? Thank you very much.
I'm June Cattell, and I am a member of Sheffield's Palestine Solidarity. And I am pleased to hear your support for Palestine, for justice for Palestine. My question is concerned with how financial institutions are involved in delaying that justice for Palestine. And I'm going to talk today particularly about Barclays. Barclays is the UK's primary dealer in Israeli government bonds, including the recent issue valued at $6 billion, which are explicitly identified as war bonds. Israel has been irrefutably judged as committing genocide, apartheid, and unlawful occupation in Palestine. Dealing in government bonds directly finances, aids, and assists this oppression and violates international law. Barclays knows this, but rejects International Court of Justice rulings and effectively acts to legitimise Israel's war crimes. If South Yorkshire Mayoralty willfully continues to bank with this bank, Barclays, you too share the moral responsibility, reputational damage, and arguably complicity. So we're asking you to drop Barclays as soon as possible in the interests of Palestine.
June, thank you for your question, and thank you for coming.
Could you speak up in your reply, because I've found it really difficult to hear what you say.
Can you hear is the microphone on? It's hard for me to tell when I'm at this end of the table.
I'll try.
Okay. So look, I know how deeply, as I said previously, people in South Yorkshire feel about the violence in the Middle East that we've seen and are continue to see. And I've been clear since October 7th, as I said, that Israelis, Palestinians, people right across the region deserve to live in peace, security and freedom. On our banking arrangements specifically, we have, as an organisation with public money, a legal duty to manage those monies responsibly and to comply with national financial regulations. And in common with all our contracts, we can't lawfully terminate contracts before their end point without a clear legally established basis for doing so. So I appreciate what you're asking us to do, but legally that's a very difficult thing for us to approach. Our current contract, though, runs with Barclays until March 2027, so a few months away. And when those contracts come up for renewal, we'll undertake a full and transparent review, including value for money, ethical and legal considerations, when that contract comes to an end. So I welcome continued engagement from you, from others, on this issue and others, of course, and I'm committed to ensuring our decisions reflect both our values, but also our legal responsibilities. So thank you very much for your question.
Could I ask you when you will be making that decision?
Well, over the next few months, clearly, because it's in March 2027, but I can't give you a date, I'm afraid.
Right.
Thank you. Okay, we have one last question, which is question number 5, which is, and forgive me if I'm pronouncing this wrong, Wyming Yao, I believe, who isn't here today, but a member of staff will read out his question. Thank you.
Doncaster's City Borough strategy identifies improvements to M18 Junction 3 and enhanced rail connectivity in Hatfield and Stainforth as vital to delivering inclusive growth, unlocking development around Gateway East and supporting the reopening and multimodal strategy for Doncaster Sheffield Airport. These interventions are widely seen as critical to managing future demand and reducing congestion, but funding for the M18 Junction 3 scheme, estimated at between £50 and £80 million, has not yet been secured, despite South Yorkshire having transport funding allocations under SYMCA. Could you set out your strategic approach to securing and allocating the necessary funding for these transport improvements, including what funding is currently available within SYMCA, what additional government or private funding you are seeking, and how you intend to accelerate delivery so that Mayor Ros Jones can deliver the growth ambitions set out in the Doncaster City Borough Strategy Midpoint Refresh.
Of course, Ken. Thank you very much for the question. So we're currently developing the programme for TCR, as we would call it, Transport for City Regions funding, which is specifically designed to support major strategic transport infrastructure. Improvements to Junction 3 of the M18 is, I can clarify, a strong strategic fit for that funding, given the importance of Gateway East as a key regional growth area alongside the reopening of DSA, something that people around this table and further afield will know I have been a supporter of from day one. We're working closely with CDC, Doncaster Council and National Highways to build on previous designs and studies so the scheme is well advanced and ready to move quickly as funding is confirmed. Importantly, that work builds on the successful £36 million of private sector investment that has built the Great Yorkshire Way, which I think demonstrates our ability to leverage public funding to unlock growth and accelerate delivery. So as long as the private sector to secure additional funding and investment, ensuring that we maximise value for money and maintain momentum on a scheme that is essential to Doncaster's future, to South Yorkshire and to DSA. So I'm really pleased about that. And thank you to the government for their approach to this, because I know that they've lent into those conversations. On rail connectivity, nearly £7.5 million has already been secured through the Towns Fund to support improvements at Stainforth and Hatfield stations to deliver wider connectivity and accessibility benefits to the area. Network Rail is progressing the design and delivery of those improvements in partnership, again, with CDC, as people would expect. Taken together, that approach ensures that we're aligning funding, partnerships and delivery, local, regional and national approaches to support the Mayor, Ros Jones, in delivering the growth ambitions and putting the right transport infrastructure in place to secure Doncaster's long-term prosperity as a contribution not just to South Yorkshire or the North actually, but to the whole of this country. So happy to provide that answer. Ros, was there anything you'd like to add to any of that?
Thank you, Oliver, and thank you, Mr. Wei-Ming Yao, for your question highlighting my refreshed City Borough strategy, which was approved at our full council last week with cross-party support. You correctly identified the significance of the M18 Junction 3 critical infrastructure investment requirement for the airport and Gateway East. In the MCA report approved last September, the Associated Service Assessment Strategy underlined the importance of this investment as a priority, and I hope this will be agreed as part of the ongoing Transport for City Regions funding discussions, which are ongoing with South Yorkshire colleagues. And thank you for supporting my case, Mr. Wei-Ming Yao.
Brilliant. Thank you very much. That's the end of public questions. You're, of course, more than welcome to stay. As I said, I'll try and find some time at the end of the meeting if you'd like to, but if you don't want to stay for the rest of the meeting, now is the time to exit the building and go out into the horrible weather. Thank you very much for coming, everyone. Well, for those watching online, we're just giving everyone a couple of moments to exit the room. Thank you. Thank you. Okay, brilliant. Okay, in which case on to item number 9, which is minutes of the previous meeting. Could leaders please approve the minutes from the meeting held on the 11th of November 2025? Does everyone agree that those minutes are a true and accurate account? Any challenges or changes? No? Thank you. On to item number 10, governance post implementation review, and I believe that is going to be presented by Councillor Chris Reed and Rebecca. Chris.
Thank you very much. My laptop's just switched itself back off, so I'm glad I spent all that time making sure I've got the report in front of me. Let me start by thanking Claire and Rebecca for their support through the course of the review, and everybody else that we spoke to. Just briefly, I think probably the key things for anybody watching this to be aware of are the review comes in light of the ever-changing role of the MCA and the fact that the role and responsibilities of the organisation have changed substantially over time. Anybody who's followed this closely will know we've tried a number of different ways of exercising a kind of executive level of governance, and this was an opportunity for us to reflect on the strengths and the weaknesses, the things that we wanted to see improved around that. And in so doing, for all of us as the MCA board, to balance a level of political leadership attributable to any individual member of the board and also for us to have line of sight across a whole range of policy activities that we would all have an interest in. The key things then that are reflected in the recommendations here are to move away from the kind of portfolio approach that we've exercised over the last few years and to move into more of a project-based leadership system, whereby the Mayor will be responsible for ensuring that each of us have oversight of pieces of work that we will want to lead in within the MCA's context. That we will move to a more rigorous, regular programme of meetings that allow all of us to have that line of sight across the full range of activities that we would want to see. That we will reiterate the importance of forward planning and improve the line of sight forwards, if you like, for decision makers to make sure that we are clear about the rhythm of decisions coming down the line. And within that then, that in so doing, when we are setting out a strategic approach, that we're really clear to the exec team here about the things that will fall out of that, the action planning and the activity that we want to see. And that in turn then will help all of us to have some assurance about the things that we've decided to do that work, the things that we've decided to do that perhaps don't work as well as we would like, and to give us real decision points about ensuring that we are choosing what we want to prioritise and what we want to move on from. I think they're the key things. So thank you to everybody who took part in it. Thank you, Oliver as Mayor, for your support and the way that you've enthusiastically engaged with this process. I hope it helps, I said this at Scrutiny last week, I hope it helps Scrutiny do better. I hope it helps all of us to move forward and face into this next stage of exciting developments and that kind of growing mandate that we have to do work on behalf of the people of South Yorkshire.
And right back at you, thank you for the work that you put in and the time and energy and effort, because I know it's been considerable. Rebecca, was there anything you wanted to add? No, fantastic. Okay, any comments or questions for Chris or indeed for Rebecca? I know everyone's seen the paper. No? Fantastic. Okay, brilliant, thank you. In which case, the recommendations are that we move from thematic to project-based portfolios supported by joint MCA local authority teams, enhance the cycle of MCA board and policy and strategic planning meetings with dedicated time for political discussion, establish a clear forward plan for the strategy and policy life cycle, improve reporting through concise, keyword, executive summaries and clearer recommendations, and number 5, conduct a further governance review in summer 2026 to address upcoming legislative changes and bus franchising readiness. So I presume we're all in support of those things. So thank you very much. Okay, in which case on to item number 11, which is the Local Innovation Partnerships Fund, which will be presented by Tom Bousfield and others. And it says here Joseph Quinn, but I don't see Joseph, so I presume you're taking it.
Joseph isn't able to make it, so I'm going to deputise if that's okay.
Wonderful,
So this is
thank
the Local Innovation Partnership Fund, at least 30 million that will be devolved to South Yorkshire as a region. There are strong conditions around the funding, however, including the fact that it needs to be based on a pipeline of projects which support genuine centres of excellence, clusters of national or international significance, and that leverages in significant private sector funding. So we are in the process of developing those proposals, and the paper asks for approval from the board for the establishment of an innovation board that will work through and develop those proposals, and then delegation of decision making and also negotiation with UKRI on submitting bids and accepting grant in return. The timeline for this is that we will need to have submitted those by the end of February, and then we hope to have heard by the summer whether we've been successful in granting the funding.
Brilliant. Any comments or questions for Tom or about this piece of work? A significant amount of money, but I think there's still a load more work to do, right, is essentially the summary. Any comments, questions? No, brilliant, thank you. Okay, the recommendations are significant, but as written in the paper, so I don't tend to read them all out. If we can all agree the recommendations, everybody agreed? Wonderful, brilliant, thank you very much. Okay, in which case on to item number 12, please, which is the one close to my heart. This is the South Yorkshire People's Forest. We were a finalist in the DEFRA 2024 Forest of the Nation competition, one that I know got lots of people's hearts racing. Something I care about deeply, because we're trying to plant 1.4 million trees across South Yorkshire, one for every person who lives here. And while the bid was unsuccessful, we got very positive feedback. So Sarah is coming to talk to us a little bit more about that. Also Claire, would you like to introduce the paper?
Wonderful, thank you, Oliver. The paper before you outlines that South Yorkshire has got many
rich ancient woodland assets. And sadly today we know that without some further intervention, much of that heritage will be at risk. So this proposal builds upon the strong foundations we've established through the Woodland Partnership, and as Oliver mentioned, the recent success we had in reaching the final stages of DEFRA's Forest for the Nation competition. And applying lessons from that bid, what we would like to do, if approved, is move forward with a Heritage Lottery Fund application that would prioritise a people-centred approach to woodland management. So we're focusing on two clear priorities: restoring and safeguarding our ancient woodlands for future generations, and secondly, reconnecting people with that shared natural and industrial heritage. So grant funding, if successful, would come in two stages: a development phase and a delivery phase. We know that public funding alone wouldn't be able to meet the scale of challenge that we face in protecting these assets. So if we were successful, this would unlock significant external investment, which would allow us to protect those sites for the long term. So if you approve this today, we're ready to continue to work with the Woodland partners to progress the application for submission next month. We've secured the funding that we need, that's outlined in the paper to proceed, and also at the development stage, if we're successful, we would develop proposals for a long-term blended green finance strategy that would secure the sustainability of the project. And Sarah is here to answer any detailed questions that anyone might have.
If anyone's got any really detailed questions for Sarah about trees, now is your chance. Sarah, is there anything you'd like to start with? So I've got this fiddle leaf fig tree, right, and it looks a bit unhealthy, and I wouldn't know. Has anyone got any questions for Sarah? Tom?
Not a question, but just wanted to come in and really welcome this. I think as Sheffield is a tree city of the world, and absolutely share the ambitions to support this bid. We fund expert rangers and colleagues who are well supported, and we want to make sure that who support large parts of ancient woodland in our city, and there is a higher percentage of ancient woodland in Sheffield than the national average, so it's very significant in the city, and we want to do what we can to support their work, and so just really welcome this, and I know it will be very well supported by lots of colleagues and residents from our city who are rightly proud that we are one of the greenest cities in the world, and that a third of our city is in the Peak District. We are global, green and growing, and this is exactly the kind of thing that we should be backing and welcoming, so full support.
Brilliant. I mean, it's worth me saying, I think, look, I committed to 1.4 million trees in South Yorkshire because there are places in South Yorkshire where you absolutely need to plant trees, and Doncaster are doing a great job in the leadership of some of that, and that's really welcome, but the whole of South Yorkshire wants to benefit, and this is a great way to do just that. But we should also reflect, I think, on just how great it is to live in a place just like this, where it is just so green. I'm always reminded, Jack Scott, a former councillor, I remember he brought a German politician to Sheffield, and they were up on one of the hills, and the German politician looked out over Sheffield and said, it's like living in a forest, which I thought was always really quite lovely. So we should do everything we can to carry on that journey. So this for me is really welcome. Some would say it is tremendous news. You're welcome. So the recommendation is that the board considers approval for SYMCA to act as the lead applicant to develop and submit a bid to the National Lottery Heritage Fund on behalf of South Yorkshire Woodland Partnership, and acceptance of any subsequent grant. Are we all agreed? Yes, thank you very much. On to agenda item number 13, which is budget and business plan development. I would just like to raise a small objection that I don't think we should make that budget item number, it should be the number 13 on the agenda, just for reasons of superstition, just for future reference. So Gareth, could I hand over to you, please?
Thank you, Mayor. Excitement levels rising throughout the agenda as we move on to the budget. So this is a budget development report that sets out a number of the pressures that we're facing as we enter the forthcoming financial year. The report also sets out the available funding that has been delegated or devolved now from government through the integrated settlement, and that includes £1.3 billion available to us over the next 4 years. So a significant amount of funding that also comes with opportunities and flexibilities due to the way in which that funding is devolved down to us. So the report sets out on a functional level where choices and risk lies, and the report proposes an increase to the transport levy of 2%, recognising now the fourth year in a row that the transport levy has been increased as we transition towards a franchise bus model and public ownership of the tram network. The report also recognises the proposal not to set a mayoral precept for the forthcoming year and notes the consultation that was live at the time of writing around the policing precepts. Finally, the report recognises the ongoing development work and the proposal to bring final revenue budget and capital programme proposals to the MCA board in March. Happy to take any questions.
Thank you, Gareth. Any comments or questions for Gareth? I know we've had extensive conversations about the development of the budget, so any final questions? No, brilliant. Okay, can I just ask that the board accepts the recommendations which are listed in the paper? Everybody agreed? Yeah, brilliant. Thank you. Okay, on to agenda item number 14 then, please, which is Programme Performance and Approvals Report, which is from Laurie Thomas.
Good afternoon. So this is the usual programme approval request paper, and also incorporates a performance update on the capital and revenue programme across up to the end of Q2. So the capital programme is forecast to deliver around 160 million this financial year, and that covers investment across South Yorkshire. At the end of Q2, spend was behind forecast, which is fairly standard, I think, for previous financial years as well, but we'll continue to work with all of the delivery partners to ensure accurate and timely claims and submission of year-end forecasts. There are some significant capital programme milestones approaching. The Brownfield Housing Fund programme is in its final year, and all schemes need to be contracted by the end of March this year, so there's quite a lot of work ongoing with that. And then the City Region Sustainable Transport programme is in its penultimate year and will need to be contracted by March 2027. So again, a lot of work underway with that programme. Currently over 200 projects in the capital programme, 91 of them are in development gateways, 10 schemes were progressed at the last MCA board meeting, and 5 since then have been progressed through delegated authority, and they're either in contract negotiation or in delivery. In terms of the adult skills, employment, careers and business support programmes, they deliver to a combination of financial and academic years. So that means that the Q2 report represents the midpoint of the year for some of those programmes, as the activity will have started in August, September. So it's just bearing that in mind when looking at the kind of profiles for the year. The Adult Skills Fund and Free Courses for Jobs programmes have seen strong delivery across the grant-funded local authority and college programmes, and a thorough performance review has been undertaken, which has led to a reduction in some of the procured provision contracts and has enabled the appointment of a wider learning organisation based to the framework, with contracts now awarded and schemes and activity in delivery throughout the rest of the year. The Skills Bootcamp programme for the financial year is in delivery, with additional construction-specific activity via the further education colleges commencing in Q3, so that's all just started. The ambitious systems change activity across work and health is progressing well under the banner of Pathways to Work. So just moving on to the programme approvals, the report outlines 4 schemes seeking full approval, subject to conditions in the assurance summaries that are in the appendices. There's the A61 Chesterfield Road Bus Corridor, Priority Phase 1 scheme in Sheffield, 2 in Doncaster, which are the Mexborough Transport Network Sustainable Improvement Scheme, and the Bawtry Road Walking and Cycling Phase 1 scheme. There's 1 Brownfield Housing scheme, which is the Rotherham Direct Delivery Priority Site scheme in Maltby. And then there is a change request also for Rotherham, which is seeking an increase in the gain share revenue investment to support the work around the station master plan. 2 requests for officer delegations, 1 for an investment zone scheme called Preformed Windings, which is currently being assessed but is not quite ready for an investment decision today, so the request is to deal with that outside of the meeting. And then the other delegation is to utilise the Local Growth Fund in 26-27 alongside £1 million of the Sheffield Gain Share revenue allocation to enter full approval and award of grants in relation to the extension of the UK SPF activity into the next financial year. And then finally, paper requests endorsement to submit proposals to the Art Council to seek support for place partnerships for the South Yorkshire Childhood Music Project.
That's it.
And breathe. Thank you, Laurie. Any comments or questions for Laurie? Wonderful. Thank you very much. Okay, in which case could are members happy to agree the recommendations as set out in the report? Yeah, fab. Thank you very much. Okay, in which case on to item number 16, which is delegated authority report, which will be presented by Catherine.
Thank you. This is really straightforwardly our usual report on decisions taken since the last meeting in November under delegated authorities for the board to note the level of activity that's happened.
Any comments or questions? No, in which case the board's asked to note the decisions and delegations made. Thank you very much, everybody. That brings us to the conclusion of the meeting. Thank you to all those watching online. Thank you to all the people that came and asked questions. And we will see you all again soon. Thank you.